Today, we are going to get into a really critical skill for any Level 6 project controls professional. We're talking about skill S8, mastering change control. And to really bring this to life, we're going to follow the story of Jody, an apprentice at Ibis Stores. You'll see how she goes from feeling totally overwhelmed by change requests to becoming the confident guardian of her project's success.
All right, let's set the scene. It's a Tuesday morning. Jody gets a message from her line manager, Riddle. Now, on the surface, it sounds great, enthusiastic, a top priority. But that last bit, just a small change, right? Well, that's the phrase that sends a shiver down the spine of every project controls professional out there. And boom, right away, Jody feels that familiar knot in her stomach. You know the feeling. She's an apprentice, she wants to be helpful, she wants to be a team player, but everything in her training is screaming at her that this is not a small change. It feels big. It feels like the beginning of scope creep, that sneaky, dangerous expansion that can throw a whole project off the rails. So later that day, she's chatting with her mentor, Adam. He listens, he nods, and then he hits her with this absolute game changer of a question. See, this isn't about being a blocker or some kind of gatekeeper who just says no to everything. It's about finding a whole new way to think about her role, a way to actually add value and protect the project, not just get in the way. This is when Adam gives her this really powerful analogy. He says, Jody, you are not a processor of forms. You are the blueprint guardian. Your job is to protect the project's official plan, its scope, its cost, its schedule. And you don't do this by just saying no. You do it by using evidence, your own expert judgment, and a really sharp sense of the commercial side of things. For Jody, this changes everything. So Adam breaks it down for her. A guardian's first job is to figure out what kind of change they're looking at. Some changes, they're like making a little note on the blueprint and annotation, maybe changing a button color. You can manage that with the controls you already have. But Riddle's request? Whoa, that's a full-on redraft. That's way out of scope, and it needs a formal process, new approvals, and a serious look at the commercial impact. Okay, so Jody has this new mindset, which is great, but how does she actually do it? Well, Adam doesn't just leave her with a cool title. He breaks it down for her into 5 clear, actionable steps to build her skills and confidence as a real blueprint guardian. So here they are, the 5 steps. First, you have to understand the blueprint, know it inside and out. Why does change control even exist? Second, you have to enforce the rules, and you have to do it consistently, even when a manager like Riddle is breathing down your neck. Third, you judge the evidence. Does this request actually line up with the approved plan? Fourth, and this one is absolutely huge, you have to evaluate the commercial impact. What does this do to our budget, our timeline, our risks? And finally, step 5, you act proportionately. A tiny change gets a tiny response. A big one gets escalated up the chain. And this right here, this is the heart of what Adam is teaching her. Your real authority doesn't come from your job title or from pointing to rule number 27B in a process document. It comes from your professional judgment and your ability to protect the project's integrity with cold, hard evidence. So let's fast forward a few weeks. Jody is feeling way more confident. She's handled Riddle's requests like a pro. Now she's meeting with her apprenticeship coach, Olivia, to get ready for the next big hurdle, actually proving she's mastered this skill in her portfolio for Aptem. Olivia puts the challenge out there perfectly. Look, it's one thing to do the work, we all get that. But for your apprenticeship, you have to prove you did it. So how does Jody take all these real-world actions and turn them into the kind of solid, formal evidence an assessor needs to see? Well, Olivia basically gives her a toolkit. She can write a reflective statement that walks through her decision-making. She can submit the actual change assessment she prepared for that loyalty feature. Heck, she can even use the emails where she was explaining the process to Riddle, or get feedback from other stakeholders who saw her step up. It's all about creating that paper trail that shows her judgment in action. And here's the secret sauce. What the assessors are really looking for. They don't want a robot who just follows a process. They want to see someone actively enforcing control. They want to see that you can make a clear, commercially savvy judgment call. And above all, that you are protecting the integrity of that project baseline. They want to see a guardian at their post. After Olivia reviews Jody's evidence on that whole loyalty feature request, she's blown away. This quote says it all. Jody didn't just fill out a form. Her reflection showed she was thinking deeply about the commercial consequences of the change. That right there is the level 6 standard. So the months fly by. Jody has submitted her portfolio. And now it's time for the final test, the endpoint assessment, the EPA. This is the final gateway of her apprenticeship. a professional discussion with an independent assessor to prove her competence once and for all.
The assessor kicks things off with a classic, a tell me about a time question. This is Jody's moment. That whole story with Riddle and the loyalty feature, it's the perfect example. The question is, how will she structure her answer? She doesn't just tell the story, she structures it like a pro. She explains how she first identified the request was out of scope by checking it against the baseline. Then she details how she evaluated the commercial impact. And this is key, she describes how she communicated this back to Riddle constructively, not defensively, before she finally recommended the correct, formal path forward. It's a perfect demonstration of those 5 steps in action. Then the assessor follows up with a tougher, more conceptual question. This isn't just about one story, it's about her whole philosophy for protecting the project. This is a real test of whether she understands the why behind the process. And her answer is absolutely rock solid. She talks about the principle of strict baseline discipline. She explains how crucial it is to challenge assumptions, no matter who they come from. She makes it clear that all changes have to follow the process and that baselines are sacred. You only update them through formal, controlled actions. The result of all this? A pass. 100%. Jody has successfully made the journey from a nervous apprentice to a qualified, confident project control professional. And her story proves that mastering this skill is totally achievable, one step at a time. So when you boil it all down, the crucial point is this. Skill S8 isn't just about administration. It is a fundamental shift in your identity. It's what takes you from being someone who just processes paperwork to someone who actively protects and guarantees the success of the entire project. And that really brings us to the end. Jody's journey gives you the map. So now the question is for you. You are the guardian. What important blueprint will you stand up to protect tomorrow?